at any point while we're gathered, and I will now hand it to Peter. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Schuyler, for that lovely grounding exercise. And hello, everyone. It's good to see all your faces, many familiar faces, and it's a pleasure to be here. I host an online and in-person event space called the Stoa that regularly hosts sessions like this. And Sylvie invited me to co-host today. And my role, broadly speaking, is to hold the space to see what wants to emerge. And for those visiting from the Stoa and are not familiar with Sylvie's work, she's a French-Taiwanese artist and co-founder of Life Itself. And she weaves Eastern and Western philosophies into her art, which she treats as contemporary rituals. And we can see today's session as one of those rituals. And this will be a celebration of a release of a manifesto, which Sylvie will share more about in a moment. And the first part of today's session, Sylvie will speak more about the manifesto on something she calls the collective, and her and I will have a brief exchange. And the second part of today's session, we'll have a collective inquiry with the collective, and there'll be a break in between for a breakout room where you can connect with fellow participants. And a question that we'll be living with throughout the session, I'll put it in the chat, is what happens when we put life itself at the center of art. And so, yeah, feel free to sense into that question. Maybe there's any provisional answers emerge. And this notion of a living question, the question that we do not force to answer with our minds, but we stay with it, with our bodies, to live with it and allow it to live with us. And the question can change, it can morph, it can become subtle and nuanced, and it can change quite radically. So that's the disposition that we're going to have with this living question today. And we're here for 90 minutes in total, but we may run over time, so feel free to come and go as you please. And with that said, I will introduce or take in Sylvie.
Hello, everybody. I'm so moved to see so many people gather here together. I feel it's really speak to a deep hope in all of us to see something being born. So the context for today is the launch of Art of the Second Renaissance, both the manifesto that I hold here on the physical copy and the magazine. And really, the art of the Second Renaissance is art at the service of birthing a Second Renaissance, which is this moment of civilizational crisis and awakening. And because we're in this old paradigm of modernity and we're going into this new paradigm, and hopefully that new paradigm lands us in a place where there's more interconnectedness, wisdom, inner growth, and help us go beyond capitalism. And so the art of the Second Renaissance core activity includes developing this manifesto, forming an art collective, producing an annual magazine, hosting exhibition, and creating many more creative projects that embodied this movement's principles. And I'd like to start to note I'm a bit sick, so if you hear me cough here and there, that's just because there is still a process, I believe, in me of something dying to see something being born. And this very event is the beginning of something being born. I will start by also the first part doing a very quick presentation of the manifesto. So I'll share screen. Here we go. Where is my, here we are. Great. Desktop. I seem to have an issue with my, no, hopefully. Hopefully Zoom. Yes, Zoom will not allow me to share screen. But I wonder if Rufus or Lauren, could you guys share screen? for me, please, for the slides?
Yes, I
And
will do that.
in the meantime, I will speak a little bit to the manifesto. So the manifesto is actually based also on an essay that contains 10 parts, 10 principles. And the 10 principles of that essay are foundational that inspire the manifesto. The first one is a general introduction, and the second point is the meaning, the North Star of humanity. The third point is inquiry into and beyond self. The fourth is the dance of interbeing. The fifth is the mystical and creative soul. The sixth is art, truth, faith, and liberation. The seventh is the alchemy of the spiritual, religious, and political. The eighth is the cultural, political context in which we find ourselves currently. The ninth is the healing link between past and future. And finally, the 10th point is life as an art form. And I will read out loud this very short manifesto, parts of the short manifesto. So we are a collective of artists making art to bring forth the second Renaissance. We are alchemists. We create a new world through our work. We are the bridge between the dying past and the future unborn. Art is an expression of our consciousness and humanity. This is our path of transformation, life as an art. So what will be the art of the second Renaissance? It will be the dawn, calling us to value interbeingness, awakening, wisdom, and inner evolution. Because we believe and witness that there is an innate calling in life to be deeply and truly free. A freedom which includes and transcends the freedom to have, to feel, and to think. A freedom to be and become. It is a liberation. That this life movement cannot be repressed by fear, war, terror, death, and dictatorship. That our ability to understand, love, care, and contribute is an expression of our intuitive knowledge of the truth of our interbeingness. By doing so, we become the author of tomorrow's future and the priest of the dying past. Our work is to create a space to be with all of it, to be with the joy, the darkness, the hope, the sadness, the unknown. Our work is to inquire about what would a world that works for everyone looks like. What would be asked of us to let go and develop for this to be fulfilled? Our work is a practice to inquire about the nature of reality. Our work is mystical, political, spiritual, religious, and artistic. Our work inquires about the good through community. Our work expresses beauty through art. And if you want to find out read more about the manifesto, you can go to this link that I will just drop on the chat, so you can take a moment maybe after this call to look it up and take the time to read it more. And this ultimately is a celebration of a birth of a new art movement. And as many art movement before, well, we are going to make art, and we make art through, if we can go to the next slide, Rufus. So we have this magazine, and our first publication was on the theme of impermanence. And we had many contributors this year. And you can download the magazine also on this next link I'm going to drop over here in the chat. You can download the magazine for free. And we hope to make a publication every year. The next issue will be on the theme of mythos. And so if any of you are inspired by that theme, please feel free to get in touch. We love contribution, that is through form of writing or artworks. And so that's another keystone dimension of the art of the Second Renaissance, is making art, sharing that art through the magazine. And if we can go to the next slide, Rufus, these are kind of snippets of this current publication that we have on the theme of impermanence. Here you can see different artworks and writings. And also we have a yearly exhibition. Last year we had an exhibition in April 2024, also on the theme of impermanence. If we can go to the next slide, Rufus, thank you. So and I'll drop here a link where you can see videos of the exhibition that happened in April in southwest of France, Tenac. And ultimately, the one distinction is that we've also formed an art collective. And this art collective is still at its very embryonic, emergent phase. If you can go to the next slide, Rufus. And it's currently composed by 4 women of Amanda Zamparo, Schuyler Brown, Cheryl Sue, and myself. And the way the collective work is based on the manifesto and the essay. And it's this collective that will go into this collective inquiry later on in the call. And finally, we'll also organize some art residency on the art of ritual later this year. And so if you're interested, you can also go on the link and register your interests if you ever want to participate, because we'll have very experienced ritual artists here, not only myself, Schuyler, Cheryl, and Amanda, in creating this powerful residency to enable, basically it's opening this portal into a new reality. And art is a cornerstone in making this new reality, because art is the practice of imagining differently and birthing something new. And that is also why there's something about this collective that starts with 4 women, because in the feminine energy, we recognize that there's a need for the feminine energy to bring birth and nourish something that is at its infant state. And we also see that at its later development, it will be open to more people, including men. But at this very first stage, we recognize that the feminine energy is crucial in its needs to be nourished. So this is a very first kind of introduction. It's something very deep in my heart that I've noticed that we need a revolution in how we approach art. We need to approach art as life itself and no longer something separated from our lives. And so I'm very delighted to be here, and I'll hand it over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Sylvie, for that lovely introduction and share to the collective and art as life itself. So I'm going to ask Sylvie some questions, and if anyone has questions, pop them in the chat. Make them real concise. We may or may not get to them. We only have 20 minutes for this portion. But yeah, the first thing that came up that felt most salient, Sylvie, was this North Star of humanity. That phrase, the North Star of humanity. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Well, meaning the North Star of humanity, I always like to observe reality. And what seems very unique to human being is that we're the only animals that I know of that make art. We don't see monkeys or octopus or crocodile make art. And that tells something about us. It seems that it's something we deeply need, because art is not like making art helps us to get better at hunting or collecting fruit, but it's something essential to our humanness. And I think it's because us human being, we live through meaning. And art is making meaning of our lives, making meaning to what it is to be alive and why is it that we die. And without art, therefore, we can't survive. We can't survive in our humanness. Um, and so that's what I mean by the northern star of humanity, is that it's what we look up to make sense of our world. Um, and there's something so deep that when we look at cave paintings that, are over thousands of years, 20,000 years, we can relate to the experience of these other human beings, of making art. We can relate to the need of making art to make sense, to forge a new world, and to forge our imagination together into what's worth living for, and therefore what's worth dying for.
And there's something interesting about this North Star related to interbeing, and how art, as you say, is sort of like helps bring that about, helps midwife this interbeing. Can you speak more on how art is related to bringing about the interbeing or becoming conscious that we're already in it?
Yes. What I sense is that uh, this new paradigm we want to see being born, interbeingness is a key dimension, and yet it's so hard to practice, specifically when in the place where we have so much conflict, to experience that, there's a difference, there's a distinct Sylvie and there's a distinct Peter, and yet you and I are interbeingness. I can't exist without the clouds, without the birds, without you, Peter, but also without someone I might disagree politically, that there might not be so much distinction. And it's really hard to practice. And I believe that art is one way of practicing, embodying, and presencing the interbeingness. uh, Both also in maybe having a different approach to how we make art. That's why art of ritual is really important, is rebringing the mystical spiritual dimension and represencing when we make art that we are interbeing with life in general. Our existence is dependent on all the ecosystem around us.
And
And maybe I want to add, sorry, a point to that. That is why I believe that it's important to operate as a collective versus as an individual, because often by training as artists, we're trained to think as ourselves as our individual expression, my art, what I have to say, versus operating as a collective that is at the service of a message, at the service of something bigger than its sums. And uh, and it doesn't mean that the individual expression does not play a role. It has a unique portal message to deliver, but it's no longer about the individual expression. It's about being at service of something.
and what comes to mind is this, which I mentioned to you before, this Philip Reef dichotomy of death works versus life works, where death works are like works of art that separate people, fragment them, undermines the sacred underbinding of what unites people, while like life works is a work of art that brings people together. And some people call this like life art. And something about these like communal practices, these, some people call it we space practices, like communion as art, feels quite significant for this life art. Um, and so with that said, I'm curious how the collective that you've belonged to and summoned, how do they practice art?
Well, I feel like that's a collective question, not just for me. And I would say that the four women who are part of the collective are extremely present and channeling source, the source of life. I would say that that would be what I feel is a major common factor between these four women is being very present to the source of life. Um, the other way is that I feel the four of us are kind of witches, good witches, you know, um, and that is witches in the sense of being present to the magic, present to the soul, and alchemist, mixing something that most people might not see, and something new opens up from this alchemy. I feel that this is the one, and it's not reserved to women. This ability to kind of alchemize things and to generate life and to see the sacredness in life is not reserved to women, but it's something that all four members, I would say, really hold dearly, the sacredness of the source of life.
Um, I have a follow-up, but since Schuyler has a share or question here.
I think as soon as you said witch, Sylvie, he thought of me, so I will jump in. Makes me so happy to hear witch used in the positive. Yeah, I see the other witches nodding. Yeah, I see you. So yeah, I just wanted to say a couple things to weave a couple things in. One is I would like to say thank you to Tucker Walsh, who's here in the space, for introducing me to Sylvie. Yeah, because um, yeah, I just want to underscore. I don't really have a question unless I think it will spark something in you, Sylvie, but underscore the language that you use. Like my experience of reading the manifesto when Tucker sent it my way and I knew that I was going to be talking to you, I read what you wrote and I felt like I was breathing. It was like new, like fresh air, it was like drinking fresh water from a spring. And there was so much of what I would call like the feminine sensibility in the language, in the actual language that you're using. And so, um, yeah, this is so very special is what I want to underscore. And also as someone from another generation, Sylvie and I are finding so much richness in the transfer of wisdom and the energies and the intergenerational sharing that we can do. Um, because I sense in Sylvie like less baggage around like I was an art history major. I've wanted to be an artist since I was a child, and it was always such a man's world, and that created a lot of resentment and alienation in my experience of art. Like I want to, and I know there are others of you out there who have felt that. It's like, oh, you want to be a writer? Oh, well, it's kind of a man's game, and all the great artists that I studied and the art authors that I read, many of them were men. And so the fact that this is unfolding and happening now in a way that I can participate in and that we can participate in together that really integrates the heart, the wild beating heart of the feminine, the elements, the earth, life, babies, death. You speak with the language of death also, Sylvie, and thank you for doing that. So, I feel so drawn to this movement and so happy that you're doing it. And if there's anything more you want to say about, um, I mean, it's almost like you don't even have to, you say it by being it, you say it every time you open your mouth, you're saying it. So thank you. That's my share for now.
Thank you. I feel I might want to say just a word about the chosen name of renaissance, which is to be born again. To be born again, you need to learn to die. And I feel life is a constant birth and death, and which is different from death work. And what you mentioned is we cannot push ourselves forward if we cannot learn to let certain things go. And letting go is a nice way of saying, but it's death. Really letting go, dying is not an easy thing to shed layers and after layers, but it's also to honor God to die, because otherwise we cannot make room for the new. If we weren't dying, the world would be filled with zombies and really, really old people who had very, very old ideas. And so, and in ourselves, in myself, I hold very old ideas that are hard for me to let go. And so, for me, the Renaissance is a practice. It's a constant practice that I sit with of how do I let myself die so I can be reborn again, so I can give a chance for the future.
And the four women in the collective, yourself, Skylar, Cheryl, Amanda, I know them, they're my friends, and they have a great capacity just to hold a lot in their body, to feel a lot, to grieve, to feel joy. Um, and I wonder if you or anyone part of the collective can speak on that, how important that is to uh, experience, all of life in one's body in order to give birth to a new life. And look like the collective.
I want to just take a breath with that and say a word, but also maybe open it to Cheryl, as I gave birth about 2.5 months ago, and Cheryl gave birth 2 weeks ago and is here among us. And it is essential part of life to give birth. And I'm just gonna maybe pause there, uh, because as you said, your opening question is, what would art look like if we put life itself at the center? And life itself includes literally birthing the new life. And Cheryl, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to share.
Just noticing wanting to take a deep breath with all of you. It's amazing to actually see our four faces together, appreciating the spotlighting and feeling actually less alone, and the courage that comes from feeling the collective field holding. And something that's very present with me, and I was noticing the arising of the way my body attunes to intensity. It's like that palpable sensation of the heart starting to beat faster, this way in which, yeah, the kind of biomarkers of the body recognizing that there's something at the center here drawing us together, and a willingness to not turn away from it because the intensity can feel just too much. Just there is this visceral quality of a too muchness. And when I'm at that edge of being with the intensity of the latent future wanting to be born through your body as a vessel, through whatever it means to be attuned to source, there's this way in which, I mean, Sylvie described it as a practice, like this death and rebirth practice of staying with that cycle again and again. And I remember just meeting Sylvie for the first time last November in France. Actually, it wasn't. It was the second time we met we met last summer as well. And there was this real sense of kinship around embracing all dimensions of life as art. And for us, we were both carrying life in our bellies. And just being able to meet another woman who's so devoted to creativity, so devoted to a form of sacred activism that includes family, that includes this embracing of relationship and the village that forms around life being born as an expression of the culture that wants to be born through us, it made me brave. It made me really, it allowed me to face, I mean, to some extent, like for other mothers and other parents, like fathers as well, there's a way in which birthing as a process, pregnancy and gestation as a process is actually death. It's as much death as it is birth. And something in the psyche like quakes in terror at that reality. And ritual has been the way in which I transmute that terror actually into courage. And ritual was how I brought a field in of family and friends and colleagues to co-hold the birthing journey so that my son was able to arrive earthside in a way that, like, it feels true when I say that I couldn't have held that alone. That journey was so intense, and it's imprinted in me as a deep pattern from which any kind of aliveness wants to be born in this time. It's asking for relationships to gather together and to meet in a kind of intimate relating that is bloody and messy and deeply just, I mean, it's so exposing. Like birth is the most exposing experience you can have. Everything that's hidden is completely disclosed. But there is something primal that is allowed to express itself again in that portal opening. And that's the art that I I long to co-create with this collective and in this movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Like, I felt like you spoke through, like, it's like we're four bodies, and the word can be spoken not through only one body, but among the four of us. I'd like to bring you back in, Peter, um, and hear a little bit more what opens up from your inquiry with us.
Mm. It's pretty verbal, sense of greater spaciousness, stillness, and just wanting to hold firm and kind of witness this holistically in my body.
I noticed that I would love to hear, if she's willing, I would love Amanda to hear your voice.
I'm just um I'm just moved to see Cheryl's baby. Yeah, I don't know, I feel really connected. I think Cheryl has become a sort of sister for me. And that's how I met Sylvie also last summer. And but there was something about just seeing Xavier holding that little body, just how I don't know, tender. Yeah, so it just feels like life is really at the center. Whatever we're doing, um, that's the life. I feel like that needs our care, and I don't know. I have a very strong reaction to that image of a newborn and just really caring for it. Yeah, I care.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing that, because you bring the rawness of like life. There's something so tender in life that we disconnect ourselves from the sacredness and the vulnerability of it. And also, there's something so vulnerable and tender about this new paradigm that wants to exist. It is like a newborn, and it requires so much tenderness and love and care for it to grow into a powerful, full adult. And I like when I see if we can, you know, the awe that you brought, that you touch towards Cheryl's son, is the awe we need to fall back into about life, because we forget how magical life is, and then we desacralize everything that is sacred, because life is sacred. And so thank you for your tears, because they're healing tears. They're connecting tears to what matters.
Another aspect of motherhood came in for me. Along with the tears and the tenderness, and not different from them, but the fierceness, I want to say. Like how beautiful to hold the fierceness and the tenderness and the reverence at the same time, simultaneously. When I tune into the act of creating art, and like what it's like for me, and what I think at some point originally there was a question in the space, I think from Peter, about how we create art. And one of the things that I feel like a lot of body in it, and I feel a lot of passion and fierceness. And for me, some of that is in the past has been a struggle, like a bit of a fight to get the voice out, to express in the face of, or in the fear, through the fear of not being invited or heard, and there's been so much mellowing of that for me with age. Like that's part of the great gift, and also the times changing. is like putting down, like Sylvie, that was so beautiful the way you described how challenging it is to let go. Like it would be very easy for me to keep struggling, even when there's not really the same need for the struggle. But the fierceness feels wild and natural. It feels like an aspect of self that I really enjoy. I have to say, it's really fun. It's yeah, as I feel it archetypally, there's like a bit of that like destruction energy, that slicing, the cutting through energy. And so yeah, just offering that into the space and noticing like that comes through in my mothering. I have a teenager now, so I'm in a different phase. And there can be more of that fierceness in the way I'm holding space for her, or space in the household, and then also writing or making art. So I offer that in for us to hold also.
Thank you, Schuyler. Um, Peter, I think we are very soon allow people to kind of go into breakout rooms and probably share and get to meet others here, because this community is not just of the small collective, is also enabling others to connect with one another. Do we maybe need a little bit more time to set up the breakout room, and we can have another question?
I think we could set one up now if Rufus, you can put people into groups of 3 for 7 minutes, and if you can exclude Sylvie, Schuyler, and myself. And while Rufus is doing that, this will be the question that we're going to continue living with, and you can answer that in the breakout room. What happens when we put life at the center of art, life itself at the center of art? So roughly, we'll trust everyone's discernment, but roughly 2 minutes each, and perhaps the person with the longest hair goes first, person with the shortest hair goes last, which always seems to work. So any other context setting there, Sylvie, for the breakout room?
Well, this is perfect.
All right.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We thought it would be good to get into the bodies a little bit, do a little bit of grounding, embodiment. So I'm going to offer a few suggestions, and you're welcome to play along if that feels like if it would feel good to you. So if you can stand up in your space, if you want camera off so that you can really move, we're just going to move for like 3 minutes. So stand up, feel your feet on the ground. Yeah. Stomp a little bit. So we're just going to get the blood moving a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Anna knows what's up. So you can stomp, you can shake, you can kind of swing your arms. Like if we had music, we might be dancing, but we don't have music right now. So, or well, maybe we do. So maybe hear the inner music. All right, yeah. All right, now I'm going to actually ask you to do something a bit strenuous. And so play along if you want, or do it less strenuous. Just listen to your body. We're going to do 12 squats, okay? Because this movement involves the body. So we just want to feel the blood moving. So just with me if you want to do it. So 1, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, deeper. 8, 9, 10, 11, yes, 12, and stop, hand on heart. Feel your heart beating. Just let the breath be a bridge between the body and the mind. Feel those feet on the ground again. walking, taking your seat, admiring the baby Rufus has in his own. And as you sit again and come back into our circle, maybe taking a moment to yourself to feel life in your body. Yeah, life in the body. And feel your seat on your chair or on the ground, your feet on the ground, the grace of the Mother Earth holding us, and the force of gravity. Maybe opening the eyes like big and bright for a minute and just feeling the luminosity, the light, the sun. Okay. Thank you so much. Next time we're going to do 20 squats. Okay. So everybody's going to really get in shape. We gotta be for the long run, right? For the duration. We gotta be healthy in the body to make great art. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Skylar. Today was leg day for me as well, so I thought squats, more squats, no. But thank you for that, Skylar. So yeah, welcome back, everyone. We're going to move into the collective inquiry portion, and we got a preview of that for the breakout room. And so in a moment, Rufus is going to highlight Sylvie, Skylar, Cheryl, and Amanda's faces. And we're going to do something a little bit different with this one. So keep the chats clean. And if you're called, write down a living question during the inquiry. So while you're listening, and if something moves through you, if life itself moves through you and you feel a question coming, put in the chat. So I'll give you an example. Maybe it's just like, this question emerges, what is art? And then you sense into it further, you hear some share from the collective, then you might want to write something else. Why is the artist called? And just continue this. And so the idea is, if we're all doing this, we'll see this stream of collective wisdom of questions in the chat. And the collective may or may not look at it. So that's not the idea that they're going to be answering the questions. It's just something that will be flowing through. So if you're called, pop a question anytime. And again, the question that we're all living with is what happens when we put life itself at the center. And so yeah, I'll pause here and put the piece in the middle, and whoever feels called to speak can speak.
Well, I think, Peter, we wanted Sylvie, we were going to give her a chance to talk about life, right? The ancestors.
Yeah. Sylvie, you can start us off.
Well, yes. I want to open this inquiry with letting people dwell in the question of, who does your eyes belong to? Are they your eyes or your parents' eyes? I know that my eyes are a bit my mother's eyes. I know that my hands are a bit my grandmother's hands, especially the nails, and the long fingers that my daughter have. Are they hers or are they mine? And those long fingers were from my grandfather's. And we've been for so long into understanding and thinking ourselves as individual, also in time and space, thinking that this face is my face, but this face does not belong to me. I come from a long lineage of ancestors that so many women gave birth and had their child survive, that I can stand here. We are no frail little things. We are powerful, strong human beings, life beings, living force, that we stand here. And I am not an individual in that sense. I am my grandmothers, my great-grandmothers, my grandfather, all the men and women that come before me, speak through me, and are here with me. In facing the crisis we are facing, they are all there with me. And all our ancestors are with us right now. And these ancestors can hunt us and be our ghost and not allow us to bring forth a new future, or they're the deep roots that allow the tree to shoot up and touch the light. And the distinction between that is, if we embrace our responsibility as ancestors, that we have children or not, we are responsible. And in a society that value youth so much, youth are the ones that are irresponsible. My son is not responsible. He's 5 years old. But to embrace responsibility is to embrace wisdom, is to embrace that we have something to transmit. We have something that we've learned and we transmit. So today I want to speak to you as ancestors and not as just you, this one person, because you're the one person who comes from a long chain of life that you see through the eyes of a long lineage of life, that we can see much deeper. We can see truth. May this collective inquiry open as we inquire not just that will come after us.
I want you to be able to pass the lipstick, Sylvie. I want a line right here. And
I will draw it for you.
okay, thank you. Woo! Ah, yeah, that's good. Exactly. It's bringing to mind an experience. It came like that when I saw that red lipstick and I wanted to get my hands on it. It was 2017, 2018. I was in Italy and I was with my daughter who was 5 years old at the time. I was leading a women's retreat. And as part of the retreat, we did one of the women offered to create a red tent experience. And I took my daughter. There were about, I don't know, 25 women and my daughter, 5, 6 years old, and she wanted to come, and we went into the red tent, and it was like pillows and very sumptuous and like so rich, this environment. And we sat in a circle and it was silent, and the woman who was leading it got out a red lipstick and just put this like bright red lipstick on, and then she passed it to the next woman, and the lipstick went around the circle, and then it came to my daughter and she just put on these bright red lips, like 5 years old, and passed it to the next woman. There was some kind of initiation there, and I'm just really feeling a lot of joy in the memory of that. Thank you. Mm.
I hear all the tears of all the mothers in the world who fear for the life of their child. All the people displaced who lost their homes. I hear that screaming child of that first breath when it's born, of the air coming into the lungs. Because to live is also to suffer, but is not only to suffer. Awakening is possible. I can taste the goodness of the milk of the mother. Like today when I eat a warm soup cooked with love. The song of the heartbeats. This heart is not my heart. This heart is the drum of the world.
Another memory, also from Italy. It's 1480, and I am an alchemist, and I am a woman, and I am furtively darting through the small streets of Venice on my way to my teacher. I'm carrying a basket. There's some goodies in there. I'm curious if you women might know what those goodies are. I can feel my little slippers on the cobblestones, and I have to hide this liaison, this practice. it's not proper for women to be engaging in these pursuits. And that's it. I dart into the shadows, and that's it.
There is joy and there is pain right here, right now. The joy of sisterhood, the joy of a simple conversation and of a sunrise. And there's suffering. I can feel pain in my body, my ears, my jaws, discomfort, horrible discomfort and pain, constantly coexisting together. Isn't it living to cultivate joy among suffering?
I'm very curious about people outside the spotlight. And I feel uncomfortable being in the spotlight. And at the same time, I'm trying to receive this attention from a relaxed, like even relaxing my pelvic floor. And Sylvie's voice is very soothing. And Cheryl playing with her baby is very soothing. And this Italian memories are also soothing. Mm. And I notice this tension in my body of waiting for, I think, an attack. And then, yeah, there's this, anticipation for, so my pelvic floor contracts back into, and then I also want to invite everyone. That's my impulse, to invite you to notice that place of relaxation or contraction. Yeah.
Really resonate with that, waiting for the attack. And I don't take it as an accident that our sister disappeared in the middle of that, and she reappears, calling her home. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge the supporting dads. And the supporting men, the loving fathers, the builders, the warriors, the builders of home. I want to acknowledge because actually Schuyler, Tucker put me in touch with Ari, and Ari wrote me an email saying that I should meet you. And it was for the magazine. If I wanted Ari's work, I had to make sure like you were part of the deal. It was you or no deal. And I was like, of course. And so I want to acknowledge the men. Also Xavier, who is so loving and supporting towards Cheryl, supporting her craft, her art, her magic, her black wholeness. And Rufus. Oh, you know, we've been talking about the women, but to make a child, it takes the masculine and the feminine to come and alchemize together. It takes us, it's literally soul making of the feminine and masculine. And I want to honor the masculine and Peter for being the men here, also holding so that they can be that tenderness at the center. I want to say I love the men. And I want to heal. I so want to heal that relationship between the feminine and the masculine and see it that it's actually a creative force, that it can be a force for good, and to heal the distrust that specifically so many women have so much distrust in the masculine because there's been so much suffering. But also heal what the masculine might have had, the suffering that the masculine have with the feminine. So thank you to the men. I wonder what do the children ask us to let go?
I want to let my child maybe cry that into reality. I want to heal. I want to heal this fissure that I notice I inherit as well, and I want to make whole of separating the divine and the mundane. And I want to enter sacred space with a baby that's crying and fussing, and to not feel like that is a distraction or shouldn't be included, but is in fact a radical embracing of a crying and pooing baby that is actually life itself, kind of like exploding itself into our attachments to perfection, to a kind of modern, clean identity. And I want to embrace all the cracks, all of the tears, all of the grief and frustration of bringing life into a time that is yeah, into a time that demands real life to be sacred, for the re-enchantment of the most mundane, so that we remember that paradise is right here, even as things may seem hellish. So my baby cries that into this space.
I want to heal at this point in my life, the invisibilizing, the making invisible of our elders. I want to enjoy this passage into a new phase of my life as a woman. And I'm really enjoying this new directness that's coming, almost like a no time to waste kind of attitude that permeates everything from grocery shopping to yeah, as I mentioned before, the art. Yeah, it's like, for me, such a relief not to worry about politeness or likability, or so many of the things that characterized my fertility years, let's say. And yeah, I'm like just really enjoying and wanting to embrace and play through these crazy years of disillusion of the body. And celebrate that.
I'd like to invite Xavier.
Hello, all. seeing some requests for some male voices. But I break the ice. Yeah. I mean, there's so much. Obviously, the entire focus for the last 2 weeks has been this baby, and so I'm really taking so much of this ritual and these images and this language through that context. And I think the gender dynamics being invoked a few times, it's been present with me as well. You know, it's interesting. I've tended to have more female friends, and I'm quite used to very femme-coded spaces. You know, like we'll go to yoga classes, and it's not uncommon for me to be the only guy in the room and things. And I'm quite comfortable with that. I don't find it. Yeah, I think when I was younger, I might have found it a little uncomfortable, but I'm used to that. But I can very much imagine there is something about that coding which sort of sets ideas on like what, you know, what is masculine and what, you know, what spaces, what things one can do and what spaces one can be in. But what I've noticed just in the last few weeks is that parenting is the most femme-coded thing I've done. Even though obviously we like love good fathers, we try to have images of those, and they exist a bit in the culture, but even just like basic things like I'm looking up how to use a baby carrier or something like that. Every single video is a woman. Every single website is got mom in the name. You know, it's always like the granola moms Reddit where I'm trying to figure out what soap to buy, and like moms sharing baby wearing tips. And you know, when I'm trying to figure out whether the baby carrier fits me, I have to know my dress size and things like this. So it's just like there's so, and again, like I feel relatively comfortable being in those spaces, but I don't feel welcomed in to the project of parenting, you know, in an interesting, you know, I have lots of like dad friends that are role models and things. I don't mean to say like the culture has no space for dads, but it's really striking. Yeah, just how femme coded this experience has been just these last few weeks. And, you know, and there's forms of, you know, there's forms of masculinity I could take on here that's more about protecting the home and protecting creative space and going off to work to bring home meat or something. But I actually kind of like, you know, nursing the baby and bouncing them around in the carrier and things like that. And I think there's like a masculinity in that as well. And so there's like it's like, yeah, these like fluid mixings of these energies and like really interesting ways. But yeah, this is, if we talk creativity and art, this is a creative project that is like so not individual. Like it's, first of all, obviously could not be done without Cheryl, but I think Cheryl would be having some trouble doing it without me. But then we would have so much trouble doing it without our close friends and family and the people that have been coming here and like holding Io while we like sneak in a little nap or something like that. And so it is this like master class in the collectivity of actual creativity, that this is not like somebody's expression of their ego in any way. And that goes from personal relationships to the system itself. You know, our midwives have been amazing, and like public health nurses from the city have been calling to check in on babies' weight gain, and like, you know, everything has been publicly funded. And we go to a lactation clinic down the street, and like that's publicly funded as well. It's like we're doing this as a whole fucking, yeah, as a whole fucking community in the city, right? In this place that we often talk about as like, we ran out of formula by accident yesterday, and I was like, oh shit, we have to feed the baby. And then we door dashed formula, like this very like commercial thing. But I was like, in that moment, I was like, wow, thank God for this app. This thing, I've normally had this like strong criticism of these things. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like I can have food here in 20 minutes. Like, thank God, you know, like this like way in which we're so reliant on each other. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. And what I hear is like your love and care. That ultimately it's not about gender, it's about love and care. To bring the next generation, to bring the new future is to love and care for that future. It's not a matter of age. And to care, it's an all-consuming. It takes something to care. And it hurts a bit to care. I don't know, I just had this memory of being a child and I think seeing on TV something about another war and feeling the hurt in my body. Because when you're a child, you love so much the world. And it hurts to love. But thank God for a bit of that hurt, because that hurt lets me know that I love. And I just want to bring to our attention that we're about to kind of bring to an end this part of the collective inquiry. And I guess if I want to leave people with something of tonight, is to love fiercely, is to create. Because I have real, like, why art of the second Renaissance? At the end, we talked about babies a lot and life and death. And really, I think when we honor life, we create. We honor that impulse in us that exists in each human being, which is to create. And it's because there's something about human being, you know, the northern stars of human being is also to create. Human beings that creating the Lascaux paintings to new technology, there's an impulse for human beings to create, and Christian or not, but there's this idea that human beings might be created at the image of God. And if God is a creator, then, and we're made at his image, then to create is to honor God, is to honor the divine in us. And so I think this art movement is an urge to see creation in everything. Creation in that moment of feeding a baby, to like when you take your paintbrush, and to have a revolution of what we think art is, and to not have it that art are reserved to a sacred few who are called quote unquote artists, but each of us are artists, and we can treat our life as this masterpiece. That we can treat right now how we make our life as this masterpiece. That, you know, when Duchamp, which was a very famous artist, I would call it very postmodern, he took a toilet, flipped it around, and called it a fountain. And it made a revolution. People were like, how dare him? This is not art. And now he's seen as this kind of precursor of modern art. And I feel that what we're trying to impulse here today is that form of revolution in what we mean by art is that art is everything. Is from the moment you wake up, you get to make your life an art piece with the reverence to it. And we get to heal the broken links so we can project in the future. And there's so many broken links in our society. And therefore, there's so many opportunity for a different future. So thank you for holding hope, because hope is not optimism of some kind of naivety. Hope is like, even it looks like the odds might not be for us, to know that there's something so strong in each of us, which is to bring life. And so after having cut life so much, there's a calling. Life wants to be born. Life wants to go on. And so I'll give a few moments to have a few breaths, and I will close the session with a ritual and a prayer. So I invite you to just breathe and feel your lungs expanding, because there's one thing that we all did. The first thing we did was to take an inhale. And the last thing we'll ever do will be to exhale. We pray for all beings to find the path to peace. We pray that the will of violence cease. We pray that a healing listening arises so suffering evaporates at the contact of metta. We pray that our wrongdoings may be healed. We pray for the veil of illusion, of separation and ignorance to be lifted. We pray for all human beings to be blessed by insights and our lives to be lifted by right action and alleviate the pain of the world. We ask for forgiveness from the future generations. We ask to help to forgive what we cannot forgive, so we may be free from resentment and hatred. We ask to help to see the Buddha nature in all beings and experience reality as it is, perfect and complete. We ask to free ourselves from fear of death. We ask to free ourselves from our attachments. We ask to free ourselves from the illusion and wrong perceptions. We ask to have the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent. We ask to help to dwell in love, peace, and compassion. We ask to protect our soul from the little death of resignation. We ask to free ourselves from the fear of death of the world as we know and as we want it to be, and open ourselves to a new world to be born. Please purify our hearts from jealousy, greed, envy, fear, and scarcity. Please allow our hearts to open itself to its calling. May we stay connected to our ancestors. May we build on the work they did and transcend their limitation and blind spots. May we connect to the strength and power of all our ancestors. May we have the blessing of the old sage. May you give us strength of faith. We cry with all the mothers who have lost their children. We cry with all the men who had died in wars. We give thanks to all that has happened to allow this moment to manifest. We give thanks to all the animals and living beings who have given their life for us. We give thanks to all the children who have brought light and joy into our lives and who have lost their innocence. We give an offering to the underworld. May the ghost rest in peace. May we no longer be hunted by the past. We are the vessel of life. We are the nurturer of life. We are the protector of life. We are the builders of tomorrow's future. And we are the priest of the dying past. We bless and we ask to bless the fathers, the sons, the brothers, the warriors. We bless and we ask to bless the mothers, the daughters, the sisters, and the warriors. We bless and we ask to bless the unborns, the babies, the children, the youth. We ask us to give us wisdom so we may be guided into the new world through the darkness. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for giving us your time.